294 leads. That's comfortably over the halfway mark of 148. The BJP is at 102. But as we've been projecting, these numbers could change. Mamata Banerjee might actually see those numbers build up and the BJP might still slide further back. We'll have to wait and see. But they are comfortably heading for a victory, the Trinamool Congress in West Bengal. And in Tamil Nadu, it looks like after decades of waiting, MK Stalin finally emerges from under his father's shadow to become chief minister at the age of 68. The DMK there winning quite comfortably, perhaps not the landslide that they had expected, but still, as the BJP or the DMK spokesperson said, they will take it. In Kerala, it is going to be Pinarayi Vijayan coming back as chief minister for a remarkable second term, defying the odds, defying in a sense age and the rising pandemic curve to come back. And in Assam, which is really in a sense the only positive, the big positive for the BJP today is that they've managed to hold on to Assam. 84 is the NDA's lead there, and Sarbanand Sonowal coming back. And in the small but important union territory of Puducherry, it is going to be the NRC Congress with the BJP that is going to form the government. So that is where we stand at the moment. But it's really West Bengal which has been the big story of the day. And let me just go across now to our panel and let's just put everyone up on screen. Let's go across to panel and let's really look at the importance of this particular result. And really, Dorab, if you look at this, I mean, in terms of what this means for the BJP and particularly for the Prime Minister, because the tally that we have, Dorab, is that between Mr. Modi and Mr. Amit Shah, they did 51 rallies in 60 days from when the campaign started till the very end. Mr. Modi did 24 rallies, Amit Shah did 27 rallies. They were virtually holding on an average of a rally a day. And yet, the Trinamool has managed to pull it off.
Also, let me make a point before we come to the rallies, is that in Bengal, some votes are now coming in. In the Lok Sabha, the vote difference between the TMC and the BJP was 3%. It is now running at the current state at 12%. 12%. 4 times the normal rate. If you're starting to lose by 12% in essentially a two-way fight,
right,
you're done for. So I think, obviously, Vasu, we've noticed this in many Lok Sabha and Vidhan Sabha elections, that Mr. Modi's ability in a certain state to get, of course, this is closer to the Lok Sabha, is very much greater. In the same state, he's normally not able to get as many votes in the Vidhan Sabha.
Yes.
Now, this time they actually wanted a Lok Sabha plus. What they've got is what normally happens, which is the Lok Sabha minus.
Yes.
Because one just didn't know whether it would for once with 51 rallies.
Yeah.
Whether take it up to, they only need a couple of percent to make a difference up.
Right.
But they seem to be, as of now, 12% down. They could end up being 5% down. But, obviously this, I think Mr. Modi is beginning probably to realize after this result that he can only do so much. Have you noticed asking for simultaneous elections? Why? Because he knows when he goes, he carries the votes. And people don't split votes too often, except in places like Orissa, where they do split votes. Otherwise, they don't split votes. If I vote for BJP in one election, I vote in the other election. But I think it's a very, very big setback. This is the second time they've tried so hard to displace her. I think this is their strategy, to rule all of northern India from extra Punjab, from, one end to the other.
But this puts the brakes on it.
They'll be very disappointed.
Yeah.
They'll be very disappointed.
Okay. Let's just actually put up the projection for West Bengal that we've done. And of course, this is again with the caveats that the numbers will keep changing and it will get updated. But this is actually quite a beautiful graphical projection which takes you into the West Bengal Assembly. And this is what now it looks like, that if you project for where we are at the moment, is the Trinamool Congress at 190. The Trinamool Congress at 190, the BJP likely to fall below 100 and end up at around a 90. So that's a big win for Mamata Banerjee, where she's almost inching closer to where she was in 2016, 211. this is almost as good a performance. For someone who's been Chief Minister for 2 terms, this is quite remarkable, all the more given the fight that was put up by the BJP, personally spearheaded by Mr. Modi himself. So that's a quite a remarkable performance if these numbers hold, as I said, with all the caveats that apply. Mr. Ram, is this a setback to the BJP, but to Mr. Modi particularly? And if so, how seriously does one
absolutely,
look at it?
Vasu. You remember the other day you asked about Hindutva, and I spoke about the limits of Hindutva. And I think they've encountered something like that, plus the whatever the election machinery of the BJP, this powerful machinery, brings to the table. But another thought occurred to me. I think Prashant Kishore was quoted as saying that if the BJP touched 100, he would give up his calling, his present calling. So it looks like he may not have to do it, or if it crosses the 100 marginally.
In fact,
okay.
in fact, he can claim credit for 2 victories today because he was also handling Stalin's campaign. So he was in Stalin's back room and he was in the Mamata Banerjee back room. So far from hanging up his boots, he may actually see his client list grow. I mean, as we speak, there may be potential clients, calling or WhatsApping him. So.
Yes, I think I met him when he came here for the DMK. I just met him independently, and he warns against complacency. I think it's a system, and it seems to be delivering results. Yes, and it's a I don't know how much credit you'll give for this victory to Prashant Kishore vis-a-vis Mamata Banerjee and the rest of the team, which was able to hold out. But this is remarkable. Right. This is a remarkable result. It is a huge setback to the BJP because it put everything into it. It put the power of the state, the central government, or the autocratic power of the central government into this campaign. And if that didn't work, then I don't know what. So we may be, I'm being hopeful here because my position is well known, but we may be reaching the limits of Hindutva plus the organizational resources the BJP bring into a fight.
Let's just get in PKD Nambiar's view on this. Mr. Nambiar, I mean, do you also agree that this is a setback not just to the BJP but to Mr. Modi, given the way he campaigned, despite the fact that there was criticism that this was a lot of time he was spending in West Bengal in the middle of a rising pandemic, despite the fact that he held speeches and rallies, where unmasked, he said, look at the crowds before me. He had to finally suspend it. That after all that, you can't win the state.
On the contrary, why don't you think in the other way around, from a 3 seat in the last election to more than 100 plus seats, isn't it less than a victory? I don't know what logic we apply that you have huge expectation from BJP. We all understand that because it's Prime Minister, which today even he is the tallest leader of the country and he commands such a large amount of popularity in India. We all understand that, but then there is some kind of a logic which we expect from veteran journalists.
No, not just. It's not even necessarily the expectations that we have. It is the BJP's own. No. I'm saying BJP itself kept saying we are crossing 200. We are crossing 200.
Of course, that is the way when you get into a war kind of a situation, when you are going into fight an election, that is the way spirit you need to go. If you go there, no, I'm only going to win 50 seats and then you go for a action on the ground, that you are defeating yourself even before you entering into the war room. So I believe that even if the BJP is able to get 100 plus, I would say that's a victory, one. Number two, if you really look at overall the 5 states, Srinivasan, for a minute, if you give me.
Just a second. I'll just come to all 5 states. Mr. Nambiar, just a second. I'm coming to all 5 states. I'm coming to 5 states. I just want to focus on West Bengal right now. I will come to all the 5 states. Let me ask a question. Would you say, okay, you're saying that even the fact that you've come from 3 to 90, perhaps 90 plus, is itself a big achievement, and there's no doubt that is an achievement. But I'm just asking you this, that was it, in hindsight, worth it? Was it worth it for the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, the top 2 members of this government, to devote so much time and energy to a political campaign when the country was going through this huge crisis, which has now completely engulfed us, and that they may have, in a sense, played a role in exacerbating it? by holding rallies, by addressing large crowds without any precautions, by sending out a signal that actually everything is fine when everything is not.
So one thing I will tell you, this is applicable to every political party. So
no,
it is
I'm
not
asking specifically about the BJP, and I'm specifically asking about the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, because they're not like every other political party. They are currently the heads of the government in India. So they will be held to a different standard.
I always say that we are a country of contradictions. We can have a different kind of a view on that. That I personally feel that it was really bad to see that on the one side we are asking people to wear the mask, on the other side the huge rallies are taking place. It is not only happening in West Bengal. Why we are not talking about Tamil Nadu or Kerala or for that matter any other state?
Sir, because
the bottom line
what about today is not the answer.
BJP is doing very well. Assam, they are retaining and they are coming as one of the major opposition party, if at all. I don't know right now if it is showing it is more the close to 100 in West Bengal. It can even change any particular time. In Kerala, they are leading into 3 to 4 seats, and in Tamil Nadu, they are opening up their the first time ever in the history. Couple of seats are coming in.
Right.
What else are you expecting? And a serious political party like BJP is expected to do extremely seriously taking every election.
At the cost
and
of
BJP is not for that.
At the cost of taking your eye off the ball in fighting this life-threatening virus which is creating havoc, surely you would concede now that the elections are over, the results are before us, that was a huge mistake.
I am of the opinion, personally it is my opinion that it sends a very, very wrong message to the people. On the one side, people are gasping for oxygen. On the other side, you see huge election rallies are happening, whether it is of the Prime Minister or the Home Minister or the Pinarayi Vijayan or to that matter to Mamata Banerjee. We all, I think there is some kind of a system which we need to do. But on the contrary, what we are hearing is that it is there is no way that this can be avoided because we also have another history to attach to it. In the last year, the Bihar election, the Bihar election did prove something else to us. There was no the pandemic did not.
That's not so bad. But that's no reason to take that risk again. That's like saying I'll take a carload of people and I'll drive off the cliff and I'll hope that I don't crash. I just somehow manage to land on a tree and nobody dies, so I'll do that again. There's no reason just because Bihar didn't turn out to be a public health catastrophe that you repeat that same experiment. Anyway,
I am absolutely with you on this, that it did send a very wrong message to the people.
Right.
On the one side, people are dying. On the other side, there is huge election rallies were happening.
Okay.
But blaming only BJP or Prime Minister Modi or Amit Shah is not the right thing. That's all what I wanted to say.
No. Firstly, no one is just blaming them. I'm just simply saying, because you're the BJP spokesperson,
I'm not a BJP
their
spokesperson.
manner of conducting their political events and rallies and the amount of time they devoted, particularly because they're heading the government, was something that was a big mistake. Anyway, let's just also just open up the panel. I believe we have more voices joining us. Saurabh is on the ground in Kolkata. Monadeepa is also with us. Saurabh, let me just go across first to you. Now that it's pretty clear that Mamata Banerjee, earlier there were some nervous moments when the postals were coming in, but now she's heading for a sweep. She might even cross 200 again. The BJP might not even cross 100. Are you now starting to see some kind of excitement building up, or is it all still very much muted and wait and watch?
Well, the word from the top is wait and watch, but supporters are beginning to come out on the streets. I did see a little while ago on the other side of the road that people are, what they call shobu jabir, which is the green, vermilion that they apply on each other to celebrate. And that is out, not in perhaps the measure you would see in a normal victory, because remember, these are still pandemic times. And Trinamool leaders have been calling, as far as I've heard, have been calling supporters and telling them to keep it low-key, keep it under control, because this is still a pandemic. And if they come to power, their responsibility will be to tackle the result of what we've seen in the last few months, because it's a pandemic election, cases have spiked. Of course, like we were discussing, the Prime Minister and the Home Minister, the BJP chief holding massive rallies in West Bengal, super spreader events. But eventually, when it comes to COVID management, it will be on the state government. And it seems at this point that Mamata Banerjee is going to be, or her party is going to be in government. So whatever the outcome of the election, COVID is gone nowhere. That challenge remains. And the word from the party is keep it low-key, keep it, sort of don't come out on the streets yet. Of course, there is reason to celebrate, but not yet. Hold your horses is what the party is saying.
Party is saying, hold your horses. Mamata Banerjee, I was just talking to somebody who is part of the TMC war room, and they were saying that actually, despite all the noise and thunder which the BJP had managed to create, this is broadly what the Trinamool was hoping that it would actually play out, that they've managed to hold on to their bastion of Kolkata and the surrounding regions. They've managed to make a substantial dent in Jungle Mahal, and they've even managed to make somewhat of a dent in North Bengal. And so they're quite obviously pleased with the way it's played out, but they are now claiming that this was something they knew all along.
Well, I think that would be not a white lie, but certainly a hopeful, wish that they had earlier, that they will be holding on to this, position. Last time they got 211 seats. This time they were saying definitely 2/3 is what Mamata Banerjee was talking about. But it was a lot of wishful thinking, but it's all come true. Good, for the Trinamool Congress. It is like, finally the wait is over and they have made it. That's the mood in the party right now. But no question that there were very, very nervous moments in this entire campaign. But I was listening to Mr. Nambiar, your panelist, and all I can think of saying at this moment is, this whole battle that we saw. I mean, sure, for the BJP, if they make it to 100 seats, that will be a fantastic gain from, just 2 or 3 MPs in, 2 or 3 MLAs in the assembly earlier. But the kind of battle we saw, Mamata Banerjee on a wheelchair and the entire machinery of the BJP coming down on Bengal. BJP wasn't fighting to lose or be a runner-up. So in that, a very, very strong message coming out of Bengal for the BJP, which is very, very interesting, given the kind of polarization we saw in the state, the divides cropping up in the state, given all that, the kind of resounding kind of verdict that Bengal seems to be on its way to delivering, very, very important. Mamata Banerjee, I will repeat it, has been saying that everybody is watching the Bengal elections, not just for Bengal itself, but for the political course of Indian politics, and who knows what happens next from here. The Trinamool at the moment looking comfortable. Again, I'm being told just about not even half the votes have been counted, so it's all with caveats, but we'll definitely, for the Trinamool Congress, a huge relief.
Right. So as both of you are saying, Saurabh and Monadeepa, that no real word from the Trinamool Congress except this sort of tweet by Derek O'Brien taking a dig at Amit Shah, I believe, because I think what he's tweeted is a clip of Amit Shah where Amit Shah said that the BJP is going to cross 200 seats.
मैं आपको कहकर जाता हूं 200 से ज्यादा सीटों के साथ भारतीय जनता पार्टी.
So Derek O'Brien there tweeting that with just 2 smiley emojis taking a dig at Amit Shah as the Trinamool, in fact, seems to be set to crossing possibly 200 seats. All right, let's just look at Tamil Nadu now. Let's just quickly go through the numbers and then let's go to Sam Daniel. And there again, it appears that as many predicted, it would be the DMK and the Congress, that alliance coming to power. Not perhaps as emphatically as it appeared. The ADMK has done, in fact, reasonably well. They're getting close to 100 seats, which indicates that there wasn't that kind of widespread anger against, EPS as many had thought. But it still is going to be finally Stalin, Sam Daniel. So Sam Daniel, this is going to be a challenge for Stalin, though, because he comes to power at a time when the virus is starting to climb in Tamil Nadu, and so that's going to be the first big challenge for him on his plate.
Absolutely, Vasu. It's going to be a major challenge. We understand they could form the government on Wednesday in a couple of days. That's what some sources say. We come to you from the DMK headquarters, where till now there was celebration. DMK party workers bursting crackers, dancing and also cheering. And we understand Stalin could come here a little later this evening. But yes, tackling, containing the COVID spread across Tamil Nadu is going to be the major challenge. And a short while ago when we spoke to DMK spokesperson TK Zilangovan, that's what he said. And the party leaders said Stalin has already chalked out a clear plan how to combat this. Remember, all through the election campaign, MK Stalin was targeting the ruling Dmk and
in fact,
the
Sam,
central
sorry to
government
cut in.
of what he called mismanaging.
Yeah. Sam, sorry to cut in. There seems to be, in fact, quite a crowd behind you. Maybe if you could just get the camera to show us. Obviously, you maintain a safe distance, but just give us a sense, because contrary to
let me show
the EC saying shouldn't have too many crowds,
that's
we're
right.
seeing
In fact, DMK
bit of a
chief
crowd.
MK Stalin had asked party cadre not to celebrate. In fact, he told party cadre to stay at home and track the developments. But although the party had kept the headquarters locked for a while, once the trend became very clear, the cadre, nothing could stop them. And in fact, they cheer, they dance, they burst crackers. And again, not much of social distancing, not many are wearing masks. Nobody seemed to use the hand sanitizer. It's a clear violation of the COVID norms at the DMK headquarters. And again, it was during the campaign time Tamil Nadu started witnessing a very high spike from February onwards. And although the health authorities had told the parties to ensure COVID norms are followed, that was thrown into the wind. And over the last few months, Tamil Nadu has been witnessing a very, very high spike. And in terms of the trend, Vasu, it seems the BJP, if the trend continues this way, could make a debut in the Tamil Nadu Assembly, at least around 5 seats it appears. The PMK, which was completely out of the Assembly for a long time, is all set to come back thanks to the 10.5% reservation the ruling AIADMK had given for the one-year community. But the DMK is still hopeful that still there are many rounds to be completed, and by the end of it, they hope they'll be able to touch 180. That's what they are confident about. In fact, one setback for the DMK's General Secretary, former PWD Minister Durai Murugan, is trailing in Katpadi. And also making a debut, actor turned politician Kamal Hassan. Again, he is leading from the Coimbatore South constituency. Khushbu trailing. But the DMK and the AIADMK, at the moment, they're not formally fomenting anything. The BJP is completely happy, although they could not see their major ally, the AIADMK, get a consecutive third term here. As far as their performance is concerned, they say they're quite happy. But we'll have to still wait, as a lot of rounds are still pending.
Still pending before we get an idea of how it's going to play out. Let me just go across to Arvind Gunasekar, who's actually outside, continues to be outside Stalin's house. Arvind, now I can see a little bit of a crowd building up behind you, or is that mostly other journalists?
Vasu, a few minutes back, we did see some of the party workers coming here with crackers, with sweets, and also with the party flag. But the police personnel here, they didn't let them anywhere near this place. They did raise slogans in support of the party. They did raise slogans naming Stalin as the chief minister, but they were dispersed within few minutes. But what is happening inside is very important. Senior leaders from DMK, including the party treasurer and Lok Sabha parliamentary party leader T.R. Balu, and also Lok Sabha MP Kanimoli, and also Dayanidhi Maran, and also Udayanidhi Stalin, all these leaders have already arrived here. They are having a meeting with DMK chief MK Stalin. The party is keenly watching, looking at the numbers, though at present the lead is somewhere around 140 seats for the party and the alliance. What they are saying is that they are hoping, as per their own survey, as per their own feedback, they would be getting somewhere around 180 seats, because according to them, hardly 2 to 3 rounds of counting is done as of this moment, has been done as of this moment, and almost 20 more rounds is yet to be counted. So that's one good sign end, that's one good news according to the party leaders. Also, what they are worried is about the DMK General Secretary Duraimurugan, who is trailing in the party constituency. That's something that they are not happy. They are still hopeful that he will also pull through it. So coming to the other end, what ADMK is saying is that ADMK is somewhere around 90 seats. They are leading in 90 seats, the alliance. What they are hoping is that in the rounds to come, they will also be crossing 100, 110, 120 seats. That's what ADMK is saying that. But again, both the sides are still keeping very tight. Both the sides are keeping the cards closer. No one has come out. No one has declared victory. We are not seeing much of a celebration, not just here, even at EPS residence. Vasu?
Okay, so somewhat more of a restrained atmosphere there outside Stalin's house. Everyone still watching and keeping a close eye on those leads. But let's just go back to West Bengal for a second, because if you just look at what has happened there, Dorab and Mr. Ram as well, just see the numbers now. I mean, now if you look at West Bengal, it's been a big final push, that momentum that we were talking about for the TMC. TMC has now crossed 201. The BJP is at an 89 number, and it seems to continue to slowly inch forward. And now we just have all round leads. There are no longer any, basically just 2% postal votes. And in the round leads, it's the same. In fact, in the round leads, it's 86 to the BJP, 199 to the TMC. So the round leads, the BJP is actually even slightly lower than what we're seeing on the screen. So there could be a possibility that the TMC might even do better than it did last time, 211, again with all the caveats. But Dorab, are we seeing that momentum, that late bump that we've seen in other elections?
Vasu, this is the bump that Shekhar Gupta discovered and that we've written about in the book, Pranay and I have written. You know, that at the end, after all the rounds come in, and at the end there is a sudden bump for the winner. You know, if he's getting 60% of all seats, the last 10 seats that come, he gets 80%. I mean, the momentum increases geometrically. So probably this is the beginning of the momentum.
So, Dorab,
she could land up with 200 odd seats.
That's what I was about to say. Do you think that she could actually hit last time's number, 211, maybe even cross it?
Good, yeah. The bump suggests that you know, you could keep moving up. Once the postals are through and a fair number of seats have come in, everything has come in. Towards the end, the ruling party, whichever the leading parties, tend to do relatively better than it has done so far. Now you've got about 10%, some seats left, and you know, you'll find that the momentum goes more in favor of the leading party. This will happen in all states, not just Bengal, but in all states. There'll be a momentum.
Right. Amazing. This is really
this is
game
a
on.
political thing, nothing to do with a party or a state or anything.
Right.
There's a bump.
It's the bump. Well, it's the bump. It is, as you said, it's a statistical or a cephalogical phenomenon, but it's quite remarkable though, Enram. You know, as Mamata Banerjee kept saying, Khela hobe, game on. It's really been game on.
Yeah, she's a big winner in this. There's no question about it. And if she improves on her previous performance, that's again in a completely different situation. I think it's quite something. But
speak about for a second, Mr. Ram. Speak about for a second the repercussions of it. Because look at this projection now. One projection, this is again with caveats that it could change, is showing that they could end up with 205 to 15 seats, the TMC, in the West Bengal Assembly. This is a projection again, just to be very clear. And the BJP could end up anywhere between 75 to 85. So, I mean, it's still a big jump for the BJP from being non-existent in 2016 to now being the main opposition party. But look at that performance. But I was going to ask you, Mr. Ram, to speak about the wider national implications of this. That you've had this campaign, extremely high stakes, the Prime Minister and the Home Minister personally committed to it, have come up short. Mamata Banerjee now emerges as a kind of really the forefront of the opposition against the BJP, especially as the Congress continues to slowly hemorrhage. So this has repercussions beyond West Bengal, does it not?
Yes, if there's a grouping, a broad or loose grouping at the national level, the weight of TMC and its leader is certainly going to be enhanced, increase. But I think one caution, I think the TMC has to behave better with its others, the other non-BJP parties in West Bengal, because their record there has been quite horrific. And one of the main reasons why those who used to support traditional left voters defected to the BJP, or in the Lok Sabha elections and so on, is this behavior. They actually preferred the BJP to TMC, and I think if the TMC were wise, then I think they have to behave better, more towards the left, because the real target was, I think, the left after the TMC won.
Right.
So I think that alteration will be required if they are to pull their weight at the national level. That's an important caveat, I think, because the kind of violence they unleashed, which everybody knows about, in areas where other parties could not even function. They could not have party offices. They've driven out. But I've heard that this time in some places they were allowed to function, perhaps out of tactical considerations. But it has to be a sea change in their attitude to the opponents.
Okay. All right. Aarti Jared is here with us. Aarti, good to see you. We missed you for most of the day, but glad that you could make it finally.
Know. Yes, good morning, or good afternoon rather.
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, I know in very difficult times that we're in, but
yes.
just for a moment, Aarti, staying with West Bengal, this is really quite something. I mean, this is Khela Hobe. I mean, this is beyond Khela Hobe. Again, this, as I was asking Enram, this has ripples that go beyond West Bengal.
Well, as you know, she set the ball rolling in the middle of the campaign when she wrote that appeal to all opposition leaders, asking for the opposition to come together against the BJP. So I think she's already, sort of started set the thing in motion. And I think that, although I agree with Mr. Ram that I think she will have to concentrate a little bit on some proper governance in Bengal and, all that cut business, that, the corruption that was really killing her, and, the violence levels that were running very high. And I'm sure the BJP is going to give her a lot of trouble because it's a very strong opposition. But, I think that is only going to strengthen her resolve to create some kind of a national, nucleus to, combat the BJP.
Right.
And right now, the Modi government is on the back foot because there is this backlash building up, on the pandemic and its mismanagement. And, look at these results, Vasu. You have 3 strongly anti-BJP regional chieftains coming to power on the back of very impressive victories.
Right.
So, recently we saw even other fence-sitters like Naveen Patnaik and YSR and all, they've been making noises against the Modi government as well.
Yes.
So I think that there are troubled times ahead for the Modi government.
Right.
In the sense that centralized command system that Modi had set up where all decisions were taken by Delhi.
Yeah, the questions over that.
That is going to come. Yeah, I think that is going to come under strain.
Oh, but also, Mr. Nambiar, is there going to be some change in Mr. Modi's own style of campaigning, which at times can become highly vituperative, highly personalized? I mean, remember the number of times that he would mock Mamata Banerjee with that Didi or Didi slogan, and which several criticized, including from the Trinamool, saying that this is sexist, this is crude, this is not how a Prime Minister should address a Chief Minister. Are there going to be any lessons learned from this?
I think Prime Minister Modi's style of leadership and the way his oratory skills and his campaigning style has been proved to be one of the best, and India has never seen somebody like him so far. I don't think that it requires to have any change. And even if you really look at the numbers, even though you say that it is,
I mean, you don't find that you didn't think that those Didi or Didi kind of sloganeering, you didn't find that problematic or offensive in the least?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think so. The Didi is the way she's been called in West Bengal by everybody. I don't think that it has got any kind of bad remarks. Because
No,
Didi
come on,
is
that's
the way
not Mr. Nambiar. Now this is
Today,
pure
even-
spin. That's not how he. That's not how he addressed her. That's not how he addressed her.
Srinivasan, even when she was a youth congress leader, that time onwards, she was called as the Didi. Very famously, she is called as, very affectionately, people call her as a Didi. And there is nothing wrong in calling somebody as a Didi. In that's a culture. Dada and Didi is a culture which is happened in West Bengal. As far as look at this, the fundamental question that we are talking about the.
I was there, Mr. Nambiar. I was there at a Prime Minister's rally in a place called Kalyani, 2 hours north of Kolkata, and I heard him use that phrase a number of times. Let me tell you, there was nothing affectionate, nothing respectful about it. He knew exactly what he was doing. But the thing is, they did get a rise out of the crowd. But that's not really a reason to do it, right? As a leader, you're supposed to be above the fray. You know, you're not supposed to go low when others, you're supposed to go high. But these are some pictures coming in, initial pictures coming in from Kolkata. Finally, some Trinamool supporters are out on the street. Fortunately, not in very big number, but some amount of celebration and flag waving is going on. Tamil Nadu as well. We can in fact do a split screen for you. And let's just stay with those pictures for a second. Okay, so you can see a split screen on one side. You're seeing on the left-hand side of your screen DMK celebrations, laddus being distributed. I think this is possibly outside DMK headquarters, Arialyam. And on the other side, you can see Trinamool supporters, some of them covered with what looks like sort of green gulal, which is, you know, Trinamool's color, green, who are celebrating in Kolkata. So, 2 big wins there, united interestingly enough by one common political strategist, Prashant Kishore, in the back room of both those leaders whose supporters you're seeing on the screen. Take a short break, come back with much more. My colleague Sanket joining us to take the story forward.
Welcome back. Our focus on India's biggest health crisis and the current emergency, which is that of oxygen. Let's go across to Sukirti live, who is at a children's hospital in Delhi, which had sent out SOS messages saying that they were running out of oxygen at 12 o'clock. AAP MLA Raghav Chadda said he sent 5 cylinders there. But Sukirti, these are temporary measures. How is the hospital managing? What is the situation now?
Well, Sonia, as of this moment, so we are standing outside the hospital. We've also spoken to Dr. Shishir Paul. He's the clinical director of the hospital. He has told us that even he's been contacted by government officials and has been assured that at least 5 oxygen cylinders are on their way. However, they've not reached yet. That is what we've confirmed from some of the security staff that was earlier over here at the hospital. So the cylinders are yet to reach here. We're also trying to get officials that we can speak to at the hospital on site. But what we've been told is that there are till 1:30 p.m. they have oxygen supply which will suffice for all the patients that are admitted over here. So at least till 1:30 p.m. they do have supplies, but these new cylinders are on their way and are expected to arrive shortly. That is what we've been told, but definitely there are no long-term measures for any hospitals at this moment. As Raghav Chadda was earlier saying, that every 3 or 4 hours we get an SOS from a hospital which is about to run short of oxygen, and their supplies are about to finish, and that's when we send our cylinders from our SOS stock, and that's how we try to cope up with the situation. But because of the larger level, the center is not fulfilling their quota, the quota that Delhi is supposed to get for oxygen, because that is not being fulfilled. For that reason, even the Delhi government is struggling to help these hospitals out at this moment.
For children, so it has children there with COVID, and it has mothers who just had newborns who've got COVID. So those are the patients who are actually in there. And can you imagine for their families thinking that children may run out of oxygen in 1.5 hours, because you said the deadline is now 1:30, and women who just had babies?
Well, yes, absolutely. We've been told that there are certain beds reserved here for the COVID patients, mothers as well as children, but there are non-COVID patients as well over here at this point of time. But definitely a very worrying situation, considering small children's lives are at stake at this point of time. They do have oxygen till 1:30 p.m. and the government assuring the hospital that in the next few minutes or so, oxygen cylinders should be able to reach here till 1:30 p.m. They do have supplies, but the hospital authorities also now waiting for this new stock of oxygen to come in.
So hopefully that life-saving oxygen will arrive in time, but we can't, as I said, this is happening in hospitals across Delhi, NCR, Gurgaon, and many other parts of India as we speak. And that's why, let's go close to Sunil Prabhu, who's at the New Zealand High Commission. And Sunil, now it's absolutely bizarre that we've seen high commissions are tweeting for oxygen, and they have to go to social media and they're tweeting the Congress, the opposition party, which has now become a political spat between the Foreign Affairs Minister, no less, and Congress leaders.
That's right, Sonia. It's really unfortunate because I've been speaking off the record to some diplomats who say very categorically that in their scheme of things, they have a war book where they take provisions, but in a public health emergency which they're facing right now, they have never seen this before in their lifetime, and they really don't know how to handle it. The fact that even while they appeal to the government, they haven't been able to get oxygen cylinders, and that's the reason they reached out to everybody who could help out at this time of urgency and need. Of course, we saw that back and forth between Mr. Jaishankar, who's been keen on sending the world and telling our diplomats across the world that they need to send a correct narrative, that everybody goes through this at this phase, and every country has gone through this process. But out here, instead of us versus them, to be a united force, saying that all political parties are trying to reach out, the embassies who are reaching out, there has been this unnecessary controversy, really then seeing that everybody can be helped. Of course, finally the New Zealand embassy, when they were spoken to by the MEA, had to withdraw that tweet, but they accepted those oxygen cylinders. So did the Philippines, though Mr. Jaishankar says it was unsolicited and unnecessary for political gains. Having said that, as I said, clearly the situation is difficult. The Ministry of External Affairs has issued a response saying the Chief of Protocol and heads of mission are working out to try to help everybody, including COVID treatment. But this is definitely a difficult situation here in the capital.
Absolutely, and well, at least the Foreign Affairs Minister has tweeted a Congress leader, and there's politics back and forth. But why aren't the ministers reaching out, and hospitals are running out of oxygen besides high commissions? And the Ministry of External Affairs, Sunil, has just issued that statement. Vishnu has got the details of it. Vishnu, just tell us what exactly this statement says by the Ministry of External Affairs, as now high commissions are reaching out for oxygen as well.
Given the pandemic situation, all are urged not to hoard essential supplies, including oxygen. And this was in response to what's taken place, as we've been reporting, in the Philippines and the New Zealand High Commission. On the other hand, here are High Commissions, certainly in the case of the New Zealand High Commission, who put out an innocent tweet saying, if there's anybody with oxygen, please give it to us. I mean, people aren't necessarily playing politics, but there is, diplomatic protocol which appears to be the priority of the government at this stage, which is why the MEA has now said officially The chief of protocol and heads of divisions are in continuous touch with all high commissions, embassies, and the MEAs responding to their medical demands, especially to those related to COVID. This includes facilitating their hospital treatment. And then there's that statement which I just read out, don't hoard anything.
I just want to highlight, Vishnu, that bit you just mentioned, that the Ministry for External Affairs has asked diplomats or has asked embassies not to hoard oxygen.
Yeah,
so is the implication that they're hoarding oxygen?
It's a bizarre statement. Given the pandemic situation, all are urged not to hoard essential supplies, including oxygen. This is the official spokesperson's statement. Now, the background to this is what Mr. Jaishankar tweeted. He has tweeted in response to Jairam Ramesh. MEA checked with the Philippines embassy is what Mr. Jaishankar has said. This was an unsolicited supply as they had no COVID cases. Clearly for cheap publicity by you-know-who, giving away cylinders like this when there are people in desperate need of oxygen is simply appalling. So Mr. Jaishankar believes the Philippines embassy didn't have a demand, and therefore they've given this statement. But this obviously applies to all embassies.
No, and in fact, meanwhile, the Congress has tweeted something from the Philippines embassy, which is thanking the Youth Congress for giving them that oxygen. It's really become absolutely bizarre, but the real point of it is lost. The fact that oxygen is needed, which Delhi doesn't have, which is why people are going to social media to tweet Mr. Srinivas of the Indian Youth Congress, who, I mean, many people wouldn't have heard of before this pandemic began and is now emerged as somebody who's actually fulfilling demand. So people are reaching out to whoever they can get. But let's just go across, because the focus also has been, we've been looking at election results, and we're going to go back to our non-stop coverage of that. But let's go across to currently what's happening in what is now the worst state in India. It's emerging as the worst state in India in terms of potential growth rate of COVID cases and deaths, many of them unreported, is Uttar Pradesh. So what's happening in Uttar Pradesh today? Well, counting for Panchayat elections, and Meher reporting from a counting center. Just look at what's happening. Meher.
So I'm in Dadri right now in Greater Noida, and if we can just look behind me, this is one of 800 counting centers, and many counting centers right now look like this. Crowds have swarmed inside. Inside is where the counting is happening. Candidates and agents are standing around, no social distancing. Some masks are there, but social distancing norms have been completely violated here. This is especially concerning because just yesterday, a few days ago, the teachers union said that over 700 government school teachers have lost their lives to COVID on poll duty. They said that no COVID norms were followed during polling as well, and they threatened to boycott counting. The other people counting ballots right now, they threatened to boycott, but then they didn't, because Supreme Court announced a bunch of guidelines that needed to be followed in every center. Strict social distancing, testing upon entry, but as we can see, none of this is being followed. We spoke to a COVID center, a COVID help desk here, which is supposed to be testing and ensuring that everyone has a test before they enter here. They actually said that only 25 tests have been conducted today, all of them rapid antigen tests, which are not as accurate as RT-PCR tests. And
I don't know, Meher, I can see all these policemen all standing next to you. I wonder if they would speak to you and ask why they're not doing anything to actually keep the crowds apart, if they would answer what you're saying, what you're actually reporting right now.
Yes, Sonia. So we actually spoke to them earlier. The returning officer, the election commission officer who's in charge of actually running the elections, hasn't been reachable all day. So the police here has taken charge of conducting the elections. So ma'am, आपने यहाँ पर पूरा बंदोबस्त किया है?
नहीं, मुझे आपके कान में कुछ कहना है मैम.
Ma'am, हमारी So the police here isn't willing to speak, but they spoke to me earlier and told us that the returning officer wasn't willing to, wasn't available at the time. So they actually made the decisions of setting up COVID health tests. They also decided to put the people inside the rooms. So all these decisions were actually made by the police, and the returning officer has not been reachable all day. I've been trying to reach him also, and they haven't set up a stall here either. So there's a very distinct lack of planning here to show that UP is now struggling with cases, and at a time like this, there is no planning in this massive local body election counting.
Thanks so much, Meher, because remember, this case was in the Supreme Court yesterday, and the State Election Commission assured the Supreme Court that there will be distancing, there will be masking, everything will happen as planned. But as we can see just behind you, and this is happening across Uttar Pradesh, remember, so you can imagine how many people are actually out there today. This is happening all across Uttar Pradesh. The implications, the ramifications of this are hugely problematic. Thanks so much, Meher. And let's go back now to Sanket, who's joining us. Sanket, so that's what happens sometimes in elections. I mean, it may not be people are there, they want to know the results, but this is what happens when you just let things go out of control. Absolutely. And in Uttar Pradesh, which we all know what is currently going through regarding COVID cases and deaths.
I think Sonia, it seems politicians have forgotten that elections are a means to an end in a democracy, not the end itself. And that's one big problem that we are facing, that right now elections have been portrayed by political parties and sadly by the Election Commission as the end in a democracy. And the consequences are something that we can see right now. Whether it is West Bengal or whether it is Uttar Pradesh, we can see the consequences of holding these elections, that even now, none of the diktats or orders of the Election Commission are being followed. For instance, on celebration and also inside counting centres. I don't think you could also spot any social distancing being practiced there in that Dadri centre.
And for instance, when we're looking at Panchayat elections, I mean, it really doesn't make any difference if you postpone Panchayat elections. In fact, Bihar has postponed Panchayat elections, so have other states, but Uttar Pradesh adamant to go ahead, not just with the election, but the counting today. So clearly, yes, you're right, the politics is the issue here, not what the people who it's meant for.
Absolutely. And you know, it's surprising. All of this is being done in the name of democracy, in the name of serving the people. Well, guess what? Many of those people are lining up at hospitals and they're dying not because of COVID, but because of lack of oxygen. All the news we are getting right here. Thank you very much, Sonia. Let's quickly take a look at the figures coming in from the states. Which party stands where? The leads on your screen right now. We'll begin with West Bengal. The spectacular battle of West Bengal, a battle bitterly fought where the Trinamool Congress has now in the leads can be seen as crossing 202. They will be crossing the 200 mark. Our projection as of this moment on the basis of the way the counting is going is that they will very conveniently cross 190. BJP in double digits now, something that none of the exit polls predicted, but Prashant Kishore, the chief strategist for Mamata Banerjee, he predicted this, that the BJP will not go beyond double digits, which means they will not cross 100. That seems to be happening as of this moment. Now, if you compare this to their performance in 2019, this is actually a dip in their performance. If you were to extrapolate the Lok Sabha results and put them or juxtapose them with the Vidhan Sabha results. The left as well as the Congress completely decimated. They've gone down, sharp decline in their fortunes. But the big story from West Bengal is that very same woman who was referred in rally after rally by the Prime Minister as Didi or Didi. So that is what Didi is capable of. At least that is one can see in these numbers. Let's now quickly take a look at some other numbers also. Let's talk about the projection of West Bengal, which will come on your screen in just a short moment. Tamil Nadu, DMK is at 133. Remember, these are projections. Many rounds of counting is still going to take place. So you will see fluctuation, but you can safely say that the DMK is in the lead. Let's quickly take a look at the projection because this is significant. Where could the result probably, which range could the result actually be? So there is a change in the projection now. Earlier on, the manner in which the leads were coming, it was projected that the TMC will get under 200. With the latest trends, the new projection is that the TMC can cross 200. They will finish somewhere between 205 to 215. The BJP coming down, and I say coming down because we are comparing this to their performance in 2019. They will be coming down to 75 to 85. However, if you compare this to the 2016 score of the Bharatiya Janata Party, where they just had 3 MLAs, that's a spectacular score. From 3 to 75 to 85 is a big score. But for the sort of machinery that was put in, clearly this is not what the BJP was fighting for. They were fighting for a victory which does not seem to be likely, at least as of this moment. Let's now talk about Tamil Nadu, where in Tamil Nadu you've got the DMK in the lead at 133. And when I say DMK, I mean DMK plus Congress and the other alliance partners. But for all those who said that the ADMK will be decimated, is not the case really. The ADMK has also performed well. For them to touch 100 is significant, which means they'll make for an extremely powerful opposition. And an extremely powerful opposition means that, the sort of anti-incumbency that was being attached to the ADMK rule, that cannot be seen as far as these trends are concerned. To touch triple digits means that EPS and OPS have largely been able to keep their flock together, perhaps not enough to take a shot at power. So ADMK plus at 100, which includes the BJP, and DMK plus, which includes the Congress at 133. One figure that we would like to mention over here is the breakup of the DMK Alliance, which will show the Congress also. And that is a very significant point that needs to be mentioned here. Let's quickly put up that graphic, which will show the breakup of the DMK Alliance. There you go. So DMK is in the lead in 113 seats. The Congress in the lead on 12, which is a gain of 4 from 2016. The reason this figure is important, because Congress has always been accused of being a partner which negotiates far more than it can deliver and has a very poor strike rate. A recent case in point is the state of Bihar, where they battled on 70, won only 29. But in the state of Tamil Nadu, they seem to have upped their game. However, even now, they have a strike rate of a little under 50%. So their strike rate has always been the big challenge. However, they have still, in an alliance with the DMK, been able to deliver to a large extent on what they had promised. Let's quickly take a look at some pictures coming in absolute violation. Let's just say, whatever the process of democracy may have been, we lose in a democracy if we do not understand the fact that there is a pandemic. There is a virus out there which is wreaking havoc. And you can see celebrations have broken out at the DMK headquarters, which were banned by the Election Commission. And despite the ban, you have people maskless right outside the DMK headquarters. They may have won an electoral battle, but they have not won a battle against coronavirus. And it seems that post the victory in an electoral battle, this is a big defeat for the DMK if they allow this to happen. Celebrations in the party headquarters. This celebration will come to naught if cases rise in Tamil Nadu. I guess that is something which the leadership of the DMK has to understand. Let's quickly take a look at the Tamil Nadu vote share also, where the DMK plus has got 45. The real story over here is the fact that the ADMK is not as decimated as was being projected initially, because the ADMK has also managed about 41% vote share. And that's a significant vote share for a party that does not have, which fought the first battle of the state without its party patriarch, J. Jayalalitha. So EPS, OPS being able to keep their flock together and also being able to clock about 41% of vote share is absolutely significant. However, the DMK plus taking the edge here with just a slender margin of about 3 or 4%. At 45%, and that could perhaps deliver the goods in their favor. Let's quickly take a look at Kerala, where the LDF is going to break away or departure from tradition in Kerala of what is called the pendulum politics, where you move from one party to the other. The LDF could get 87, which is convincingly above the halfway mark in the state, which has 140 seats. The Congress party has failed to deliver. They are at 48. You can see that the CPM, the lion's share at 55, the CPI at 15, other alliance partners also adding. So despite losing some vote share or despite losing some seats, it seems that the LDF has been able to deliver. Now, what is behind this success? Is it completely Mr. Pinarayi Vijayan's leadership and also his handling of the crisis, COVID-19, since last year? What all has gone in favor of the LDF? Many analysts feel that this is not the CPM or the left party's central leadership win, but solely the effort of Pinarayi Vijayan along with KK Shailaja and his constituents in the state of Kerala. Assam is definitely good news for the Bharatiya Janata Party, where they've been able to manage a convincing win. In fact, improve their share if you were to compare this to the 2019 performance of the Bharatiya Janata Party, where they will be getting 81, above the halfway mark in a 126-member assembly. And the Congress, faceless Congress, no clear leadership projected by the Congress, not being able to deliver. Whatever happened to the Mahajot, whatever happened to the Ajmal faction, that does not seem to be reflecting in the results. So as far as Assam is concerned, the BJP will be able to form their government convincingly. And now let's talk about Puducherry. Initially, it appeared that this is a clean sweep for the NRC Plus, which includes the BJP. But now there is a tricky situation, as one does not know which way the state or the half state is going to swing, where the NRC Plus is at 15, 4 or 5 spots away from the halfway mark, and the Congress Plus is at 6. So we'll have to wait. Leads still coming in, 17 trends coming in on 17 seats of the 30. But there seems to be advantage NDA as far as Puducherry is concerned. Aarti Jairat as well as Sujata Pandey are now with us. Ms. Jairat, Saira Shah Halim is also with us. Thank you very much. Aarti Jairat, let me start with you. Ms. Jairat, how do you assess West Bengal?
Well, I think 3 things have worked in Mamata Banerjee's favor. One is, this whole image of the underdog. It works very well in politics. Yeah, it's worked for Indira Gandhi in the past. It's worked for Arvind Kejriwal here in Delhi. And I think just the sight of this diminutive woman in a wheelchair, being attacked by these 3 male bullies from Delhi, who were flying in every day and mocking her and laughing at her and, sort of criticizing her. I think that sympathy factor is definitely responsible for this it's a stupendous performance by Mamata Banerjee. The second is the complete consolidation of the Muslim vote with Mamata Banerjee. The Congress has been wiped out in its, strongholds of Malda and Murshidabad. And that's because the BJP has been so aggressive with its Hindutva that it just scared the minorities completely. I mean, the BJP, I think, needs to draw some lessons from this, that, wherever you have a state with a large Muslim population, they cannot be so aggressive with their Hindutva, because it scares the BJP, it scares the minorities into consolidating behind the opponent. And I think the third thing that has really helped Mamata Banerjee is, COVID. In the last 2-3 phases, where, all these reports were coming in of the mismanagement by the center and the failures and people dying and so on. Last 3 phases, that's right. But, a lot of those phases were in the urban areas around Calcutta, greater Calcutta area, where you see that the Trinamool has absolutely swept. The BJP is, completely wiped out. And I think that Bhadralok class, the Bengali Bhadralok class, which was kind of wavering, about the TMC, obviously with all these COVID reports coming in, they just, flocked to the TMC, and, Mamata Banerjee is back with virtually the same score she got 5 years ago, which is incredible. Which is incredible given the kind of reports we heard of violence and, corruption, and the kind of machinery that the BJP deployed. I mean, Amit Shah going every day, Modi going every other day, Nadda going every day.
But you see, the Bharatiya Janata Party always fights elections this way. I mean, it should not come as a surprise. That's their templated format of fighting elections.
But this was more than other states, because they were absolutely determined to win Bengal. It was, this Mission Bengal is something that has been there at the top of their agenda for the last 6 years.
Okay.
So, I think that they deployed even more muscle power than and money power.
Let me quickly come to Ms. Pandey. Ms. Pandey, a vote share of the BJP plus of 38%. Is it any consolation that for a party which in 2016 was just 3 seats, will now finish a little under 100? Or do you think that you could do much more than that?
No, I mean, there's always a margin for more.
right now, when we are talking about that, there is almost threefold jump, from 12% in 2016 to almost 36%.
But you weren't fighting these elections to come second.
Yeah, of course. No party does that, Sanket. So, you have to consider BJP was a challenger party. It was TMC who had to hold the ground. And I think, and they have done that. But you have to give it to a party who has risen from the tree, for a party who we on these channels heard that, or on every other channel probably wrote them off and saying that they wouldn't even they don't even have the grassroots level worker. So for them to reach here, I think it's a major. You have to give it to them. Secondly, we were just discussing about Modi coming to picture and Amit Shah going there. That's how BJP. I mean, you rightly pointed out. That's the template version of BJP fighting without announcing a candidate, but the prime ministerial candidate goes and fights it. It's just fought on the Modi factor. So I don't think so that should come as a surprise. Yes, there are certain factors which has probably not played for them, but then there are other things, because you see the way BJP has entered, it has actually changed the entire narrative of Bengal politics from identity politics. There's never a party politics to identity politics to changing the narrative from minority to majority issues being discussed. So seeing the results, you have to say the minority of majority and the majority of minority, claim of Mamata Banerjee seems to be working. But then you have to give it to a party who was nowhere a few years ago, and now it is the strong opposition. And going forward, I see Mamata Banerjee, facing a lot of a strong opposition, which was never the case in West Bengal. So they will either have one party or the other will be completely whitewashed. This is not the case. Can I
ask you something, Ms. Pandey?
And also, Sanket, I think in your channel, I think we should now put an end to the EVM issue and the election commission working as a second
not just that. I would say
BJP,
there will be some questions. Whoever is the victor, Ms. Pandey, whoever is the victor, I think the people have lost.
Those are not the factors.
People have lost because the election commission's role shall be questioned even after this victory, whoever the victor is. Because of the manner in which elections were forced on this country in the time of a pandemic. I think it was not good. Shameful.
Of course. I am completely no citizen of India. No citizen of India would ever support, death of people on the name of elections or whatever.
Then the Bharatiya Janata Party should have understood this before this result.
Remember that election commission called for an all-party meeting, including TMC, including BJP and the other left
Ms.
and
Pandey,
Congress.
the only political party...
No party had the spine to say, no, I will not do the rallies. Secondly, as a head of the state for as a chief minister, as the
Ms. Pandey, it's very convenient to take this line right now.
I think the onus lies first on Mamata Banerjee
Ms.
to
Pandey,
protect the people rather than
I will tell you what the reality is.
Minister.
I'll tell you what the reality. Unfortunately, what has happened is that the election commission faced this challenge and it faced this opportunity where it was considering whether to club or merge the remainder of the phases in the light of the pandemic. Only one political party, the BJP, decided that no, what was a courtesy accorded to candidates in the first few phases should be a courtesy accorded to the candidates in the next few phases also. And the election commission agreed. And the EC agreed. Right? The EC did not merge the election.
EC is doing a press conference at 6 o'clock today, so I think we will be getting those answers. I mean, I am no one to comment on that.
Now, let me ask you this question. Ms. Pandey, one more question. What happens to all the TMC turncoats who went into the quote-unquote BJP washing machine? What will happen to them?
Well, it's for them. I mean, I just support the government. I am not from the government. But then, for sure, Viju is here. So, hi. So I can just tell you that they maybe have gone to this washing machine or whatever you call it. But I think every leader has got that much of sense and wisdom that before taking a decision, they would have done this. They knew that the battle was not easy. But having come this far, I think you have to give it to them. And with Mamata Banerjee, with the latest trend, she's still trailing, isn't it, in Nandigram?
Yeah, but then let's see. I'll get you the exact figures in just a short moment. I'll have to open the Election Commission website. I'll get back to you. Saira Shah Halim
and... less than 1,000 and 161 seats, the margins are less than 5,000. So we need to really see till the counting.
Of course. I mean, it's entirely possible that the TMC wins Bengal, but Mamata Banerjee may end up losing Nandigram. And what What a matter of shame that will be for a sitting chief minister to lose your own seat. Riju Datta as well as Saira Shah Halim are also with us.
I think, yeah.
So I'll say one thing.
Yes,
that,
Miss Halim.
Yes, that see, the left at the Congress has really fared badly in Bengal. But what is encouraging is that in Kerala, they won with an overwhelming majority. And B, most importantly, what was critical at this time is that the Muslim votes were completely consolidated in favor of a non-communal party, which is TMC. So I'm at least relieved that BJP is not coming back in West Bengal. And it will be hopefully secular party, and we'll be able to decimate whatever little of the BJP is. As far as the left is concerned, I think they need to take a cue from the Kerala mode of governance, and hopefully it will give them time to recoup, re-strategize, and hopefully we'll see a new left emerging in West Bengal, because so far the performance in West Bengal has been dismal. And yes.
The question is, when will that happen? When and if?
See, Sanket, I'm not a party person. I will support any secular party. Okay, right now, whatever is right for the country. So what I can say at this critical moment is that I hope that the TMC government that forms, looks after the very critical COVID situation in Bengal. And hopefully they will take help from other party leaders who have played a critical role in COVID management.
Such is the situation right now, where the left as well as the BJP, both these parties are in consolation prize mode, where they're saying that, we may not have won, but at least we finished second, a strong second. And then
the left is finished, Sanket.
Yeah. One moment. Riju Datta is also with us. Riju Datta, just because you won, does this call for celebration, or will you acknowledge the fact that these elections pushed India into accelerating the COVID mess that we are in? Will you acknowledge that or not?
Sanketji, first of all, very good afternoon to you. The elections are not yet won. We are extremely, extremely confident, but we are very humbled by the situation around us regarding the COVID crisis. Now, when you talked about the Election Commission, yes, I have a few bones to pick with them. You remember, and I'll give you facts and figures, 107 letters have been submitted to the Election Commission by senior MPs, and totally 5,640 letters have been submitted to the Election Commission from TMC, but we have been privileged to get only 3 replies. How many times we wrote to the Election Commission that clubbed the last 4 phases? They did not hear us. They did not.
Why club? And why didn't you say postpone the results? What if these counting centers turn out to be super spreader events then?
Of course. And I will give you one more stat, Sanketji. On 10th of March, when the elections were not even declared, the active COVID cases in Bengal was 3,000. And as of today, it is almost 56,000.
Yes. Thus, there is a great sense of responsibility on the shoulders of Mamata Banerjee and her TMC to tell people to follow the Election Commission guidelines on not breaking into celebration. But the sort of pictures we see is of people celebrating, Riju Datta.
Sanketji, I will categorically tell you the senior high command of Trinamool Congress will urge all its workers and supporters, I know they are emotional, they are happy, not to celebrate, because this is not the time when people are dying around us. And secondly, even though we can see all the numbers of leading, trending, everything here, for all residents of Bengal, for everyone in Bengal, the most important number right now is 1800-313-444-222, which is the central COVID crisis number for every resident of Bengal. That everybody should take into account. Elections will come, elections will go, but what most important is taking care of the people of Bengal, providing them adequate oxygen.
I'll just say, as the new victor, hopefully, this burden is going to fall on your head, because as a consequence of the campaigning and the multiple phases, cases have increased, doubled, tripled, quadrupled really fast in West Bengal. Let me quickly go across to Monideepa Banerjee as well as Saurabh Gupta also. Monideepa joins us from Kolkata. Hi, Monidi. The one key contest that is being looked at very, very closely, you and I both were there, is the battle for Nandigram. Any reports of what is happening? Because with this sort of vote share and the seat projection, Mamata Banerjee looks, and her party looks at winning. They are at about 200 plus. But what about her own seat?
That's right. Lots of reports coming in of counting at Nandigram. And about an hour ago, Shubhendu Adhikari, that time his margin was something like 8,000. He left his home in Kathi and drove down to Haldia, which is where the counting is going on for Nandigram. But I think in the period that he traveled, the margin has dipped. The last report I got was that the margin had narrowed between him and Mamata Banerjee to about 3,000. Which is still a margin, but this whole drama that is unfolding with Trinamool over 200 seats, leading in over 200 seats at the moment, but Nandigram still a question mark. This is this might be the most dramatic thing to happen in an election, that Mamata Banerjee is going to win, but in her own seat she may have a definite problem. But Trinamool sources are telling us that the first set of counting was happening in Nandigram Block 1. And that is where you have a mixed population of Hindus and Muslims and others. But what remains to be counted is Block 2 votes. And Block 2 is minority dominated. And Trinamool sources saying they are just confident that Mamata will soar past Shubhendu Adhikari when that counting begins, and to be reflected in the numbers that we are getting. At the moment, last reports, I have a number of about 3,000 vote difference in favor of Shubhendu Adhikari. But staying with that, I just want to tell you that Mamata Banerjee's magic touch with stars, that seems to be continuing unabated. Even the most low-profile, unassuming stars, as it were, like Aditi Munshi, she's a singer of great repute. She sings kirtans, and Mamata Banerjee, took her to Nandigram and made her get on stage and sing bhajans. Aditi Munshi, who is fighting a very key seat from Rajarhat Gopalpur, she is leading over a veteran BJP leader, which is Shomik Bandyopadhyay. Raj Chakravarti, another actor, film director, he is leading from Barakpur, where he was up against, the might of the MP, Arjun Singh, who is known to be a strong man, a strong, he can strong arm a situation. So he is leading over there. At Asansol South, Shayani Ghosh, another actor, she is leading over there. June Malia in Midnapur. Mamata Banerjee seems to be having this amazing luck with film stars. Everybody that she has put on to fight the elections, doing very well indeed. Not so with the BJP, by the way. BJP and Trinamool fielded the exact same number of stars.
Would you have any idea of how the BJP
Trinamool
stars
8,
are doing?
Trinamool
Because, they came under
ahead.
a lot of spotlight. Of course, not Mr.
Well,
Mithun
not
Chakravarti.
very well.
Yeah.
Mithun Chakravarti, who went and met the governor yesterday, causing quite a stir. But film stars from the Trinamool side not doing so good. What is the most interesting, perhaps, is Bhawanipur. The same Bhawanipur seat that Mamata left to go to Nandigram. At Bhawanipur, an actor, Rudranil, he is the BJP, candidate over there. He's a young man. He is a popular actor. He was a vigorous campaigner. And against him, there was this very senior Trinamool minister, Shobhandev Chattopadhyay, who actually called off campaigning because of the COVID situation, towards the end, of course. And Rudranil is trailing Shobhandev Chattopadhyay. What is even more key is that Shobhandev Chattopadhyay used to fight from an adjoining constituency called Rashbihari. Now, in Rashbihari, in 2019, the BJP had forged ahead. Yeah. So in a way, it was a bit of a, relief for Shobhandev to be campaigning from Bhawanipur, but Rudranil was a strong BJP candidate.
I think a lot of these interesting aspects of this election, we'll have to wait to hear from you, Monidhi, as for instance, the star power, star luck seems to be working for the TMC, and also the big surprise, what is going to happen in Nandigram. We'll keep coming back to you to get more updates on these two fronts. Saurabh Gupta is also now with us. Hi, good afternoon, Saurabh. Where are you right now and what more can you tell us?
Well, Sanket, I am at Mamata Banerjee's residence. This is actually the Kalighat Milan Shongo Club, where they've set up a space for media persons to sort of maintain social distancing and do their reporting. But of course, if you can hear in the background, Khala Hobe, with all its DJ beats, is blasting on speakers now. Obviously, the Trinamool feels that finally it can perhaps now begin to celebrate, and that's something that seems to be happening at this point. But still, word from the residents of Mamata Banerjee is hold your horses, maintain social distancing, try and keep it low-key. But if these trends are what results are going to be, I doubt even the cadre will shy away from a celebration. But it's COVID, and Derek O'Brien has tweeted to say that we will take care of the COVID situation, because remember, if Mamata Banerjee is coming to power, she'll have to deal with the COVID situation in Bengal, and the super spreader events throughout these elections will not make her job easy on that front. And something that, happened day after day, massive rallies, none other than the Prime Minister. But also, now there is, of course, some sort of comfort in the Trinamool camp. They are saying that a lot of candidates have taken healthy leads, which might be difficult for the BJP to make up. But they are saying, hold your horses. But Sanket, Khala Hobe blasting through, speakers on several streets of Kolkata, not just the area of Kalighat, but several other places, as the Trinamool senses victory against a very, very tough opponent. This has not been an easy election for the Trinamool. Yes, they may be looking at a sweep, but remember, the BJP deployed enormous resources, star power, Prime Minister, Home Minister, central leaders, former chief ministers from other states, all of that, stars coming down to camping in Kolkata. Amit Malviya, the IT cell chief here. So they had a tough battle on their hands. It wasn't an easy battle. And with these leads showing the Trinamool in a very, very strong position, finally celebration seems to be breaking out around Mamata Banerjee's residence. And like Monideepa was saying, one woman's star power is what holds this party together, what has delivered for this party. It's Mamata Banerjee, in her own words, saying, I am the candidate on all 291 seats that my party is contesting. 3 seats in the hills were left for allies. Binay Tamang's Binay Tamang faction of GJM seems to be ahead in those as per the last results. But clearly, Trinamool celebrating what perhaps has been a most difficult election for the party. And Mamata Banerjee's star power, once again, seeing it through.
Absolutely, Saurabh Gupta. But see, we have to keep mentioning over here that one of the big reasons for this COVID surge in the state has to do with the process of electioneering. So whoever is the victor today must realize that this election has come at a huge cost, and that cost is a human cost which the people of the state will have to pay. For instance, when Trinamool Congress cadre comes on the streets, like you can see in these pictures, to celebrate, they are adding to the problem. They are not giving the solution. So this great celebration that has broken out is the exact thing that needed to be avoided. And the Election Commission said that there is an absolute ban at these gatherings. Why is this still being allowed is an important question. Let's now quickly move across to Tamil Nadu, where again the same thing is happening at the DMK headquarters. You've got celebrations that have broken out. Let's quickly take a look at the leads though. The DMK at 130. What is surprising though is that the gap which was huge between the DMK and the DMK, the ADMK seems to be closing in. The incumbents seem to be closing in. They're not performing as badly as one thought they will. They've crossed the 3-way mark or 3-digit mark. They're at 103, down 33 seats from 2016, but still quite well when you compare it to the sort of anti-incumbency that was being spoken about. And also remember, the first state assembly election minus their party patriarch, J. Jayalalitha. That's the breakup, where the PMK is at 9, BJP is at 6, and the ADMK is at 88. So the only party which seems to be taking or pulling this alliance down is the ADMK. As far as the DMK Alliance is concerned, they are at 112. The Congress delivering on 12 out of their 25, as well as the left seats. Arvind Gunasekaran now joins us from the residence. Arvind, correct me if I am wrong, the residence of Mr. MK Stalin. How is the DMK looking at this gradual increase in the fortunes of the ADMK? I mean, now they are at 103 now.
Yeah, Sanket, almost all the senior leaders who are in Chennai have already arrived here at the residence of DMK Chief MK Stalin. They are in a meeting. They are keenly watching the numbers, and according to the local reports, DMK is inching closer to 150. According to the local reports, it's somewhere around 146 or 147, and ADMK is somewhere around 88 or 89. That's the local report saying. So that's what the leaders here are also hoping. What they are saying is that as per their feedback, they will be crossing, they would be nearing somewhere around 170 to 180 seats. So that's their hope. Leaving all this apart, what we also saw a few minutes back was some party workers. They did arrive here for celebrations, but the police personnel swung into action. They dispersed all these people right outside Stalin's residence. They made them go to the Anna Rivalayam, which is the party headquarters. So coming to this particular number, in order to see this 140 and also this 80 numbers, which we are seeing for both the parties, let it be DMK and ADMK, let's dissect it into zone-wise, because that will give us a clear picture where these numbers are going forward. If you could check the Chennai alone, Chennai, which is the capital of Tamil Nadu, that has around 16 constituencies. Out of 16 constituencies, it's a near sweep for DMK. That is, out of 15 constituencies, DMK is leading. Only in one constituency, ADMK is leading. If you could take the Chennai zone in total, let it be Chennai district, Tiruvallur district, and also Chengalpattu district, Kanjipuram district, out of around 37 to 38 seats, DMK is leading somewhere around 33 seats, and ADMK is leading only in 4 seats. So when you take the Chennai zone, it's a near sweep for DMK. If you come to the northern region, that is adjacent to Chennai, that is a northern region that is also called as one-year belt. If you could check the almost around 33 seats, ADMK is leading in 17 seats and DMK is leading in 16 seats. So how is ADMK leading in 17 seats? Like you mentioned, PMK, which is the stronghold of one-year belt. PMK is a regional party that has a base, that has a support of one-year belt. So they are leading in that 16 seats. So that's again, that big chunk is going for both DMK and also ADMK. Coming to the western region, that's called as the Kongu region, from where all the heavyweights of present ADMK are from. Let it be the Chief Minister Edappadi Palanichami, let it be the senior minister, let's take the name of Velumani, Thangamani, Sengottayan, also Karuppanan. All these big shots of ADMK are from the Kongu region, that is also called as the western region. Western region has somewhere around 36 to 37 seats. If you could, 50 odd seats. If you could take that number, ADMK is leading in 35 seats. Out of 50 seats, ADMK is leading in 35 seats, and 1 seat, Kamal Hassan, Makkal Needi Mayyam chief, he is leading against the BJP's National Mahila Morcha president Vanadi Srinivasan from the Coimbatore constituency. So the western region is totally worth the ADMK alliance. Coming to the down south, that is called as the southern part of the state, that comprises of Kanyakumari and all the other districts, even that has somewhere around 50 odd seats. There it's completely reversed to the western region, whereas DMK is leading in 35 odd seats and ADMK is managing only 15 seats. So these four are the very important region when it comes to Tamil Nadu. Both the parties are equally placed, but because Chennai has gone completely towards DMK, that's where DMK has taken the lead.
Very interesting analysis on what explains the slender margin or slender lead towards the DMK is actually Chennai and the nearby areas, because otherwise, if you break Tamil Nadu up in various areas, you will see that the ADMK has not performed as bad as one would think with the ADMK plus at 104. Imagine all of this when it was being said that the party will be decimated post Jayalalitha, that they will not be able to keep their flock together. Well, guess what? EPS and OPS have been successful in doing so. We're stopping for a short break at this moment, but COVID news up next. Good afternoon. We continue to track the results and the leads in the elections in the assemblies, but it's also, it all comes at a time when India is in the midst of perhaps our biggest challenge in our history, certainly the biggest challenge since partition, with the number of people losing their lives to the coronavirus. It's absolutely astounding. With people still struggling for breath literally in our national capital, we will continue to focus on this in as much as any election, because quite frankly this right now is far more important and far more an indicator of our biggest challenge. Let's just pause for a moment and remember those who are fighting to save others, and also remember those who've lost their lives. Well, the reason we need to continue to focus extensively on the COVID situation in the country is, again, because the number of people falling sick, absolutely astounding. The fact that hospital beds in many areas simply do not exist is another factor. And perhaps the biggest challenge in all of this, people literally gasping for breath. Before we bring you that latest detail coming from a children's hospital in Delhi, in South Delhi, let's give you some perspective on the numbers. Now, this is where India is at the moment in terms of corona cases. The number of active cases now is at 80,900. So 80.9 rather lakhs is what it was. A week back, it was at 1.3 lakhs. And therefore, the percentage increase is very, very significant compared to what it was earlier. 3,92,488 cases in 24 hours. That's down 9,505. But the numbers are still astounding. India pushing 4 lakhs. And look at the number of people who've actually lost their lives. 3,689 deaths. That's up 166 people who in a period of 24 hours have lost their lives. One of the hospitals which has sounded out an SOS in the last couple of hours is the Madhukar Rainbow Children's Hospital in Malviya Nagar in South Delhi. They said that they were running out of oxygen. What's the situation there now? My colleague Sukirti Dwivedi joins us. Sukirti, what are you hearing?
Well, yes, Vishnu, we are outside the Rainbow Children's Hospital. There are both non-COVID as well as COVID patients inside this hospital. While there are no superior officials to directly speak to us here on camera, but what we've been told by the staff of this hospital is that their current oxygen supplies are likely to last till about 2 p.m. And at this moment, there are certain oxygen cylinders that are being arranged by the Delhi government. At least 5 cylinders have already been issued for this hospital, and they are supposed to arrive at this hospital soon. That is what Mr. Raghav Chadda, the MLA of the Aam Aadmi Party, has said. However, of course, across hospitals in Delhi, things are being, this is cutting it very fine with things reaching last moment at these hospitals. Most of these hospitals are sending out SOS at the last moment, and then things are being arranged. So that's but that is something that even the Delhi government is saying at this point of time. Mr. Raghav Chadda highlighted this, that across hospitals, this is the story unfolding in the national capital, that each hospital has oxygen only that would last for the next 3 to 4 hours. Nobody has any permanent solutions right now. There are no long-term windows for which the hospitals have assured oxygen. Only for the next 3 to 4 hours is the oxygen supply that most hospitals in Delhi have at this moment. And then when the SOS calls go out, then Delhi government tries to help them. And all of this, the Delhi government claims, is rooted in the fact that the central government, which was supposed to give them their assured supplies of at least 490 metric tons, that quota is not being fulfilled at the moment. And because central government is not giving enough supplies, things are going haywire on the ground.
Thank you, Sukirti, very much for joining us with those details. Well, the oxygen crisis in Delhi continues with so many hospitals now quite clearly being affected. At Delhi Sehgal Neo Hospital, there were 60 patients on oxygen support. Authorities managing supplies on cylinders being brought in by relatives of patients because the hospital is unable to get oxygen supplies. And so through the last couple of hours, we've been able to bring you images of hospital cylinders being brought in. and then once they get over, hospital cylinders being taken out. And those patients who are there, in many cases, they were told, the relatives were told, if you want your patient, your relative, your friend, whoever, to be treated in this hospital, we'll try and treat them, but you need to get us oxygen. Imagine that situation where friends and relatives are hunting for oxygen in cylinders and oxygen, which is almost impossible to get, and then moving them to a hospital, and then that oxygen running out, and then there's this back and forth which actually goes on.
मेरा नाम ध्रुव है और मैं 25 साल का हूँ। मेरे ब्रदर अंदर एडमिटेड हैं। 2 दिन से हम एक सिलेंडर लेने गए हुए हैं, अब जाकर हमारे को मिला सिलेंडर। हॉस्पिटल वाले इसके अंदर बोल रहे हैं कि इनके पास ऑक्सीजन के अंदर दिक्कत आ रही है, इनकी सप्लाई नहीं चल रही है। अब जाकर हम सिलेंडर लाए, पूरी रात हमारे को रुकना पड़ा था उधर। आप हालत देख रहे हैं कैसी हालत हुई पड़ी है हमारी को लाने में। इसमें मुंडका से लाए हम सिलेंडर, उधर ऐसी हालत है, मतलब कोई सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग का वो पालन नहीं हो रहा उधर। सब कुछ इशू क्योस के अंदर है, मतलब ये सारा कुछ अगर हम नहीं करना है तो फिर हमारी सरकार क्या कर रही है इस टाइम में।
कल रात कितने बजे से थे आप?
कल हम 8 बजे से वहाँ पर थे और हम परसों भी कर रहे थे अप्रोच। अब जाकर हमारे को कहीं से सिलेंडर मिले हैं, 50 to 60,000 के अराउंड सिलेंडर मिल रहा है।
एक सिलेंडर आपको 50 to 60,000?
खाली सिलेंडर और भरवाने का अलग चार्ज।
All right, so now this is another desperate cry for help, and this is news just coming in now. This is from the Triton Hospital, another children's hospital, which is in the Kalkaji area of Delhi. They are running out of air. This is to inform you that we have just remaining a level of an NICU for the. We've been running an NICU for the past 10 years, managing babies as premature as 25 weeks. So I can't read all of that over there, but the essential point is that it's a desperate measure for help. What they've been asking for help, we have been running NICU for 10 years, ensure oxygen, otherwise these babies will die. This is the message from that Triton hospital. Oxygen supply is running out. This is the second message from a hospital. Please help is what Triton Hospital says. This is again an astounding scenario where in India's national capital, 2 children's hospitals, including this hospital, which has been running a neonatal ICU for the last decade, is begging for help. Just read that last line, please help. Again, it's signed by somebody in this Triton Hospital in the Kalkaji area of Delhi. And you know, it's addressed to whoever it may concern. And here you have hospitals in Delhi reaching out to the media. I got a phone call late last night, WhatsApp messages late last night, please help us. And every few hours, our correspondents continue to get this. We got a message earlier from the Madhukar Rainbow Hospital, and now from this Triton Hospital as well. Again, the message is simple. If you don't help us get oxygen, people will die. In this case, children will die. This at a time when this Delhi government was the center being heard at the level of the Delhi High Court. It's being heard at the level of the Supreme Court as well. But at the end of the day, the bottom line over here is that people are still literally gasping for breath in the national capital. We're going to keep tracking this story and hopefully try and ensure that some help gets to this hospital. For the moment, it's back to my colleague Sanket Upadhyay. All right, thank you very much, Vishnu. Let me now introduce, I'm joined in by the chief of the Bharatiya Janata Party in West Bengal, Mr. Dilip Ghosh. Dilip Babu, good afternoon. What went wrong? Kya galat ho gaya? Dilip Ghosh, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Dilip Ghosh, can you hear me? Good afternoon, Sanket here. Okay, we'll try to check this audio connection once again. He can't seem to hear us at this moment. Let me try one more time. Mr. Ghosh, if you can hear me, we'll come back once I have a confirmation that he can hear us. Let's quickly show you the trends as of this moment. The leads on 292 seats. The TMC is ahead on 205. The BJP on 84. The Left Plus, which is Left Plus Congress, only on 1. Only 1. Compared to the 2016 Vidhan Sabha, this is down 75, which means that the BJP has solely eaten into the left vote share, something that they did in 2019 also. Dilip Ghosh, I believe, is now back with us. Dilip Babu, good afternoon. मैं आपसे ये जानना चाहता हूं, सबसे पहली बात, क्या हो गया?
अभी कुछ हुआ नहीं है, नतीजा तो आने वाला है, प्रोसेस में है और हम लड़ाई में हैं।
नहीं, आप लड़ाई में तो हैं, लेकिन ये तो ऐसे लग रहा है जैसे कि नतीजों का पीकेकरण होता जा रहा है, क्योंकि उन्होंने ये बोला था कि आप 2 डिजिट से ज्यादा ऊपर नहीं जा पाएंगे, तो वो बात तो अब कुछ 2 डिजिट टाइप ही हो गई पश्चिम बंगाल में।
नहीं, जब खुला था उस समय हम बहुत आगे थे, थोड़े पीछे आए, बहुत सारे सीट में थोड़े थोड़े वोट से आगे पीछे हो रहे हैं, मार्जिनल।
हाँ।
और अभी भी 20%, 25% वोट का काउंटिंग हुआ है, बाकी है। इसीलिए जो ट्रेंड सुबह एक बार शुरू हुआ उसमें बदलाव आया, फिर एक बार बदलाव आ सकता है, क्योंकि जिस ट्रेंड को लेकर चुनाव हुआ आगे तक उसमें बदलाव का संकेत था। तो हम उम्मीद कर रहे हैं अभी भी उसी दिशा में चुनाव जाएगा।
नहीं, पर आप मुझे ये बताइए दिलीप बाबू, ऐसा कैसे हो सकता है कि आप 294 के हाफ वे मार्क से इतने पीछे हैं? बहुमत के आंकड़े से आप अभी बहुत ज्यादा पीछे हो गए हैं। आपका ये कहना है कि एकदम से आगे की काउंटिंग में काया पलट हो सकती है?
हुआ था ऐसा, बिहार का चुनाव पिछले बार का देखिए आप, हम लोग जीत रहे थे, अचानक बदल गया नतीजा। और इस बार का जो काउंटिंग हो रहा है वो डबल लंबा हो रहा है। अभी बहुत स्लो हो रहा है, और 17 राउंड होता था, 27 राउंड तक होने वाला है। कोरोना के चलते टेबल भी कम है, तो इसलिए जो नतीजा आ रहा है, और बहुत थोड़ा फर्क में चल रहा है सब जगह, सैकड़ों में, 1-2 हजार में, तो इसलिए इसका बदलना बहुत बड़ा कठिन बात नहीं है। मुझे तो उम्मीद है कभी बदल सकता है।
तो आपका ये कहना है कि अभी भी इसको फाइनल रिजल्ट ना माना जाए, ना ही इन रुझानों पर ज्यादा विश्वास किया जाए, क्योंकि अभी भी चीजें बदल सकती हैं, और आप उम्मीद
रुझान तो रुझान है, ठीक है, लेकिन रिजल्ट ना माना जाए इसको।
दिलीप बाबू, मुझे ये बताइए कि नंदीग्राम में शुभेंदु अधिकारी आगे हैं, और उन्होंने मुख्यमंत्री के मुकाबले काफी बढ़त हासिल की हुई है, लीड है उनकी, गेन है। ये गेन धीरे धीरे कम हो रहा है, पहले 7,000 8,000 का गैप था, अब 3,000 का गैप हो गया है। लेकिन ऐसी स्थिति में जब तृणमूल कांग्रेस जीत जाएगी लेकिन उनके मुख्यमंत्री उम्मीदवार हार जाएंगी, इससे क्या संदेश जा सकता है?
नहीं, इसमें एक मजेदार बात है, जिनके नाम पर, जिनके चेहरे पर, इमेज पर चुनाव लड़ा गया वो खुद हार रही, तो पूरा चुनाव उल्टा तरफ कैसे चल सकता है? ममता बनर्जी ऐसा फिगर है, प्रदेश में कहीं जगह जीत सकती है, इतनी पॉपुलर है। कई चुनाव के इसमें आया सर्वे में कि 51% उनके लोग चाहते हैं चीफ मिनिस्टर, लेकिन वो एमएलए नहीं बन सकती है। ये तो कॉन्ट्रडिक्टरी है। और उन्होंने खुद भी घोषणा की थी 294 सीट से मैं जीत रहा हूं, लेकिन ये अपने सीट ही हार रही हैं। तो इसीलिए मैं कह रहा हूं चुनाव का जो ट्रेंड है इस बार का ममता जी का खिलाफ है, इसलिए अभी भी पलट हो सकती है।
तो घोष बाबू ये बताइए कि अगर
नंदीग्राम हमेशा शुभेंदु बाबू का रहा है, इसके पहले कई बार उन्होंने जीता है, इसलिए इस बार भी लोग उनके साथ ही थे।
नहीं घोष बाबू, मैं सवाल ये पूछ रहा हूं कि अगर उनकी पार्टी विधानसभा जीत जाती है लेकिन उनकी मुखिया, उनकी जो चीफ हैं, वो अगर नंदीग्राम से हार जाती हैं, तो आप उनसे क्या उम्मीद करेंगे?
नहीं, उम्मीद क्या करना है, मेरा एक प्रश्न है, जिनके नाम पर चुनाव हो रही है वो खुद हार गए और पार्टी जीत जाए, तो मुझे नहीं मानता हूं कि उनका व्यक्तिगत इमेज इतना अच्छा है अभी, और उनका इमेज ही नहीं है तो पार्टी फिर क्या है? व्यक्ति एक छोड़कर के पार्टी में कुछ है ही नहीं। इसलिए ये बहुत बड़ा कंट्रडिक्टरी है। इसलिए मेरा कहना है कि पब्लिक की जो मूड थी ममता बनर्जी के खिलाफ थी, परिवर्तन की तरफ, और इसलिए अंतिम समय तक भी बदल सकता है नतीजा।
एक चीज जो देखने को आ रही है अभी घोष बाबू, ये है कि आपके जो जितना भी गेन हुआ है, एक तरीके से ऐसे लगता है कि आपने लेफ्ट और कांग्रेस के जो गढ़ हैं वहां से आपने बढ़त हासिल की है। हमने बिल्कुल यही ट्रेंड, यही रुझान 2019 लोकसभा चुनाव में भी देखी कि उन्होंने, तृणमूल कांग्रेस ने अपने वोट शेयर बरकरार रखे और आपने बहुत ज्यादा बढ़ाया, क्योंकि लेफ्ट का वोट शेयर आपकी ओर ट्रांसफर हो गया। यहां पर भी कुछ वैसा ही देखने को मिल रहा है। तो 2019 और 2021 में क्या कुछ भी नहीं बदला आपके लिए?
नहीं, कुछ क्षेत्र जहां हम कमजोर थे, साउथ 24 परगना, वीरभूम, वहां हमारा रिजल्ट पहले से अच्छा हो रहा है। हाँ, ये बात सही है कि कुछ जगह हम लोग जीते थे, वहां थोड़े थोड़े वोट से हम पीछे हैं, इसलिए वहां कभी भी बदल सकता है। कुछ कुछ क्षेत्र होता है, कोई विशेष पार्टी का कोर इलाका होता है, वहां ज्यादा वोट मिलता है, और दूसरे क्षेत्र में दूसरे पार्टी को मिलता है, इसलिए अदल बदल होता ही रहता है, और ये कभी भी हो सकता है।
कौन से ऐसे इलाके हैं जहां आपको ये लगता है, और ऐसी कितनी सीटें हैं जो आपने मैप की हैं जहां पर बहुत ही क्लोज कॉन्टेस्ट है, यानी कि जहां पर थोड़े कुछ वोट्स में ही जहां पर स्थिति बदल सकती है? कुछ तो आपने आकलन किया होगा।
नहीं, बहुत सीटें से, मतलब 50 की करीब सीट होगी, वो बहुत थोड़ी वोट से, मार्जिन से आगे पीछे हो रहा है, और 2-3 राउंड में वो बदल भी सकता है। जहां अभी 20-20 राउंड बाकी है, 18 राउंड 15 राउंड बाकी है, तो वहां कभी भी नतीजा बदल सकता है। बहुत ज्यादा फर्क कहीं नहीं हुआ अभी तक।
नहीं, अगर आप 50 सीट आपके हिसाब से भी अगर आप कह रहे हैं जहां पर स्थिति बदल सकती है, तो अभी बीजेपी जो है ताज़ा रुझानों के हिसाब से 84 पर है। तो अगर मैं 50 में से आधे भी आपके पक्ष में अगर देख लूं, तो भी सरकार बनने की स्थिति में नहीं है भारतीय जनता पार्टी।
नहीं, सरकार बनेगी किसकी, वो तो पूरा डिक्लेयर हो जाएगा 294 सीट, तब पता चलेगा। लेकिन अभी जो ट्रेंड है, जो रुझान है, उस पर हम चर्चा कर रहे हैं। उसमें काफी उलटफेर हुआ है आगे पीछे। हमारे करीब 50 सीट पीछे आया है। हाँ। आगे भी जा सकता है, इसलिए मैं कह रहा हूँ जिस गति से हम आगे बढ़ रहे हैं, थोड़ा रुझान पीछे आया है।
अब इसको कुछ लोग हाइपोथेटिकल सवाल कह सकते हैं, लेकिन घोष बाबू मैं आपसे ये पूछना चाहता हूं कि एक पार्टी जो कि सिर्फ 3 सीट पर थी 2016 में, और अगर हम एक बार को ये भी मान लें कि ये जो अभी मौजूदा ट्रेंड है, रुझान है, कुछ इसी तरीके से अगर स्थिति बन जाए कि आप 101 के पास आकर के रुक जाएं, तो 3 से 100 का सफर, ये अपने आप में भारतीय जनता पार्टी कितनी बड़ी उपलब्धि मानती है?
नहीं, बिल्कुल सही है। हमने बहुत परिश्रम किया, हमारे कार्यकर्ताओं ने बहुत बलिदान भी दिया है। हम तो बहुत आगे बढ़े हैं। चुनौती बहुत बड़ी थी और छलांग भी बहुत बड़ा था हमारा, लेकिन टारगेट हमारा 200 था, तो उसमें वहां पहुंचने के लिए हम लोग चले थे। अब 100 में रुक जाए कि क्या होगा, वो तो आगे देखेंगे। त्रिपुरा का घटना देखिए, बीजेपी ने बहुत बार ऐसा चमत्कार किया है। त्रिपुरा में 5 साल पहले चुनाव में 1 सीट में हम सेकंड पोजीशन में नहीं थे। सीटों में सब में केवल 1 में हम हमारा डिपॉजिट बचा पाए थे, और दूसरे चुनाव में हम छा गए, हम सरकार में आ गए, पार्टी गायब होगी दूसरी। तो इसलिए राजनीति में कुछ भी हो सकती है लोकतंत्र में। और बंगाल की जागरूक जनता है, वो जानबूझकर पोलिंग की है, पीसफुल पोलिंग हुआ है। मुझे लगता है कि परिवर्तन की तरफ ये पोलिंग हुआ है, इसलिए मुझे अभी भी इंतजार है कि इसका रिजल्ट में परिवर्तन हो सकता है।
मैं 2 आखिरी सवाल पूछूंगा। एक सवाल ये कि अगर आप सरकार नहीं भी बना पाते, अगर अभी भी क्योंकि रुझान आ रहे हैं, तो आपको लगता है भारतीय जनता पार्टी अपने आप को पश्चिम बंगाल में एक मजबूत विपक्ष की तरह देखता है, जो कि बंगाल में बहुत टाइम से नहीं देखने को मिला है, एक मजबूत विपक्ष?
हाँ, यहाँ के लोग मजबूत विपक्ष चाहते भी हैं। दोनों पार्टी होती है। हम विधानसभा में कम संख्या में होते थे, लेकिन मैदान में हमें मुख्य विपक्ष के रूप में अभी तो रोल प्ले किए। तो इसलिए नतीजा जो होगा और जनता जनार्दन जो राय देगा उसको तो मानना ही पड़ेगा, लोकतंत्र को मान के हम चलेंगे। लेकिन हम तो सरकार बनाने के लिए निकले थे, उसी दिशा में अभी भी फाइट कर रहे हैं हम। चुनाव का नतीजा पूरा डिक्लेयर नहीं होने तक हम पीछे हटने के लिए तैयार नहीं।
घोष बाबू, मुझे ये बताइए कि पश्चिम बंगाल को 8 चरण के एक चुनाव में ढकेलना, सबसे लंबा विधानसभा चुनाव कराना, कोई भी जीते या कोई भी हारे, आपको लगता है कि पश्चिम बंगाल की जनता कोरोना की लड़ाई हार रही है इस जिद की वजह से? ऐसी क्या जिद थी कि चुनाव इतना लंबा किया जाए, उसमें कोई भी जीते कोई भी हारे? आपको नहीं लगता है कि लोगों को झोंक दिया है इस कोरोना की लड़ाई में?
नहीं, इसके पहले भी 7 फेज में चुनाव हुआ, कोई उस समय ये प्रश्न नहीं आया, क्योंकि जो लोग उस समय जीते थे उन लोगों का इस बार हारने का संभावना था, इसलिए इस प्रकार आया और कोरोना को इशू बनाया गया। आसाम में 126 सीट में 3 फेज में हुआ, तो इससे यहाँ तो बहुत ज्यादा सीट है उससे। तो इसीलिए बंगाल की जो चुनाव की प्रकृति हिंसा के साथ होती है, सफिशिएंट सेंट्रल फोर्स नहीं होने से चुनाव को संभालना मुश्किल है। और 8 फेज में हुआ, इसलिए पीसफुल चुनाव हुआ। पिछले 50 साल में
आंकड़े हैं जो कि ये दिखाते हैं कि 8 चरण में होने की वजह से कैसे लगातार मामले चरण दर चरण बढ़ते चले गए। इट केप्ट राइजिंग फिनोमिनली। कम चरणों में होते तो जल्दी खत्म होते,
नहीं, दिल्ली में कहां
कम होते, कैंपेनिंग कम होती।
दिल्ली में चुनाव कहां था, महाराष्ट्र में कहां चुनाव था, वहां तो लाखों में संक्रमण हो रही है। तो इसलिए इशू बनाना, राजनीतिकरण करना कोरोना को अलग बात है। कोरोना से निजात पाने के लिए सही तत्व पर चर्चा होनी चाहिए और उसको चुनाव के साथ जोड़ना नहीं चाहिए। और ये लोग इसलिए जोड़ रहे थे, उनको लग रहा था वो हार जाए।
Dilip Ghosh, the BJP president of West Bengal, thank you very much. He still feels and he's hopeful that the results will change, that the BJP has a very close contest in about 50 plus seats. So he feels that this result may dramatically change also, because many rounds of counting is still left. However, if you go by these trends, the gap between the number 1 and the number 2 seems to be increasing and increasing quite fast. So that's the flow of the counting that is going on at this moment. All right, and how bitterly fought this contest really was, let's quickly get you some highlights from the campaigning. Remember, all this campaigning happened while COVID remained a huge point of concern, a major cause of concern. And despite COVID, upon insisting, or the sheer force and brute force that many of these political parties, particularly the Bharatiya Janata Party, used to carry on with the process of electioneering, where there were rallies after rallies, where there were contests after contests, where there were road shows after road shows. A bitter contest happened during the campaigning between these two political parties. The vote percentage on your screen right now, where the TMC got 49%, at least as of this moment, as the counting is still on, and the BJP at 37%. The left with 10% has not been able to perform at all. In fact, if you compare their tally to 2016, a bulk of their vote share seems to have gone to the Bharatiya Janata Party, whereas the TMC has largely retained its voter base. Let's quickly now listen in to some highlights of how bitterly contested this election was and what all was said in election rallies.
Didi, oh Didi, दीदी, हार आपके सामने है, अब इसे स्वीकार करिए। यहां आप जय श्री राम की आवाज से चिढ़ती है, वहां आपको हर 2 मिनट के बाद हर हर महादेव भी सुनने को मिलेगा। दीदी, ओ दीदी, फिर आपका होगा क्या? आप क्या करोगी? किस पर गुस्सा करोगी?
How Bengal, how central government is misusing their democratic power, how they are confusing the people, and how they are beating the people, how they are killing the people, and how they are running the election through goons and guns. নরেন্দ্র মোদী এত দূর গেছে, প্রতি ইলেকশনের দিন আসে আর মিটিং করে ভাষণ দেয় আর বলে দিদি দিদি ব্যাঙাচি, জানেন তো ব্যাঙাচি, ব্যাঙের বাচ্চাকে বলি ব্যাঙাচি, আর ওরা দেয় ভাঙাচি ভ্যাঙাচি, মানে আমাকে ভ্যাঙাচ্ছে, আমাকে যত ভ্যাঙাবে আমি তত খুশি, তার মানে আমার ইম্পর্টেন্স আছে বলেই তো ভাঙাচ্ছো না।
So obviously these are comments which are made in the heat and dust of election campaigning, but the problem is that these campaigns have forced a state into a serious COVID crisis. And even now, in all these election-bound states, the victor parties, the parties that have emerged victorious, are doing nothing at all to learn from the crisis the country is in as of this moment. Whether it is West Bengal or it is Tamil Nadu, the victorious party leaders and followers seem to think that it is absolutely okay to celebrate this political victory. Unfortunately, the problem is that a political victory for some, there is a very high chance of this turning into a big corona loss for everyone in these states.